where are you right now? Because you're not living in New
I
York anymore, right?
no, I've been living in Arizona for 8 years. I'm in near it's Chandler. It's a suburb of Phoenix, Arizona.
Ah, okay. And how is life there?
It's good. I like it.
Eh?
I I've been enjoying life here. I travel a little bit and I do some things here, and it's a nice place to live. I'm enjoying. I love New York. It was very good to me for years, but I'm really enjoying not being there now.
But do you have a music scene there, like just clubs you go to play,
Yeah,
or?
there's some jazz clubs. I just played at the local jazz club here, the most well known one, the Nash, which is named after Louis Nash, the drummer who grew up here. And yeah, there's a little scene here. And then I travel a little bit, and there's another nice jazz club down in Tucson that opened up about a year and a half ago, which is becoming a real happening place
Oh,
called
nice.
the Metropolitan Room in
Cool.
Tucson.
Cool. Yeah, well, and you must be very known there, so you probably have all the gigs you want.
Well, there weren't many gigs for a couple of years. It was very quiet for a couple of years, but it's starting to get busy again.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Yeah,
Uh, I think you're coming to play in Europe, right? In the future?
I am in October. I'm coming with Simon Wiersch,
Uh-huh.
clarinet player.
Yeah, yeah, the one I'll talk to him, yeah.
Yeah, a few years ago I started to notice some of his videos on YouTube. I said, "Hey, this guy's playing pretty good clarinet. He did beautiful tunes, nice, great playing." And then I must have put a couple of likes or there, and then he contacted me and said, "Hey, can we do an interview?" He was doing a series of interviews for his own, you
Mm.
know,
Okay.
audience, I guess. And then he asked me what I was doing, and I said, "Oh, next fall I'm coming to in Germany to play with a clarinet player friend of mine." That was last year. He said, "Hey, maybe someday you'd come to play with me." I said, "Yeah, okay." And so here we are. He managed to get almost 3 weeks of solid dates around Switzerland, Germany, some other European cities. So he's going to keep me very busy for a couple of weeks, and I'm going to enjoy playing with him.
Oh, nice. And which is the band? Is like, clarinet, guitar, and any other
Clarinet,
musicians?
guitar. He's got a bass player and a drummer that he works with a lot in Switzerland, in Zurich. So they'll be on most of the dates, and we'll do some of the dates just duo, just guitar and clarinet,
Uh-huh.
which
Wow.
which I really enjoy doing. I like playing duo projects with just guitar and one horn. It's a lot of freedom and more of a conversation.
Yeah, that's nice. And what kind of jazz you're gonna play? Yeah.
More of older swing music mostly. I think he sent me a tune list of a lot of great old tunes. So we'll just have a fun exploring. They're not quite standards because some of them are not so standard, but older tunes, older American tunes. You know,
Nice. Yeah, yeah. Because when I talked to him, he sent me some song of himself that he was playing like funk with a wah on the
yeah,
clarinet, which so cool. So,
yeah. Well, I wish he'd do that with me too. I like it. And it's fun for me. I play. I don't know if you know. I play 7-string guitar, which has an extra
yeah.
bass string, so it's really good for duo playing. It's a little fuller, and I have a little more range, more
Mhm.
bass range, and more pianistic sound sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I saw a video of you explaining about this 7 string that you tune it like the fifth, right? And you
Yes, octave lower. Yeah.
okay. So this is probably like a kind of easy approach, to do chords, right? Just change the fifth from.
Yes, it is. Well, that's the way to get started. To
Mhm,
knowing that the note is just there an octave lower in the same position,
mhm,
and then you can take it from there. Find out different things to do with it.
mhm.
And,
And
it's funny. I was just at last weekend at this festival in Colorado, in Denver, Colorado, the third annual Archtop Guitar Festival, and it was a bunch of guitar makers making archtop guitars and a bunch of players, mostly jazz players, and there are about 6, 7 string players there. Some younger guys that have come along in the last 30 years, and
mhm.
it's great because they're all doing something slightly different with it. Everybody finds their own their own way to make it work.
Yeah, well, actually, in the metal world, it's completely different, but they use the seventh string a lot. So
I know, yeah, and I understand it's usually a low B, but different. What? Yeah,
yeah,
it's
well,
great.
I think the concept is probably different than.
Yeah.
And do you started playing seventh string? I read when you start playing with George Van Epps.
Shortly after I played with George Van Epps, yeah, I'd known about it for years, and I picked one up every once in a while and tried it a little bit, and it's nice, but not for me. It's like everybody else. I've got enough going with six strings, But then playing with George Van Epps in person and just sitting across from him in the studio and watching him play, all of a sudden something clicked, and I said, "Yeah, got to get one."
Wow, nice. How great was playing with him? Because I mean, he's just a legend, and probably you would learn a lot from him. Can you explain me how was that experience?
It was unbelievable. He's so easygoing and unegotistical, but all his energy goes to the music and making things sound as good as possible. So whether he's playing a solo or if he's accompanying, he's there to make everything sound and support you in the best possible way. It's like having your own personal string quartet behind you on the guitar, or your own orchestra. He just would find ways to make things sound good, and he wasn't really he was very quiet, but always kind of like a quiet sense of humor, very humorous sometimes, and he would explain things. He had like a very analytical mind. It was just great experience. I played with him off and on for several years. I managed to get him to go back to Europe, to England for 3 weeks at one point, where we played every night together, and we also spent a few weeks together as part of a tour in Germany. And just seeing him every day and playing him with it was just a wonderful experience.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
That sounds great. And how was for you the change to the seventh string? Because I guess from the beginning, it was completely different than the sixth string.
Yes, it was a little, Bucky Pizzarelli, who was one of the guys who took up the seventh string years ago. He had been playing seventh string, and when he knew that I wanted to play seventh string, and I was having one made, and he had an old beat up seventh string. He let me to try to play a little bit at home. It was a very rough, unplayable guitar, but at least I got used to kind of where the notes were, feeling that extra string, getting used to that root. And then I started playing it. When I got my first guitar, I started playing it on some gigs around New York City, slowly getting used to it. And then I was going to go on a tour in Europe with a Newport All Stars, a jazz group, for 3 weeks. A lot of one-nighters around Europe. And I talked to Bob Benedetto, who made the guitar. He said, "How's the guitar working out?" I said, "Oh, it's great. I'm getting used to it. Feels wonderful. Yeah. But I'm going on this tour, so I'll probably take my sixth string because I don't want to take the chance that the seventh string will get beat up too much on the road." He says, "No, you should take it. If it breaks, I'll fix it for you." So I just took it right on the road, right in the middle of a tour without, and it forced me to learn it faster and get used to it on the spot.
Okay.
Many times I'd be there, I'd be supposed to play an intro or start a solo piece, and I'd have to go to, it's only 7 strings, but if you look down at it, all of a sudden it looks like 10 strings. It's not, you're not used to that. So I'd have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, there's the 4th string, and to make sure I hit the right string with my right hand. And it forced me to get into it faster.
Yeah, it takes a while because I bought a 5-string bass to record when I do like some demos wherever.
Oh yeah,
and usually always used to the regular tuning.
Right.
Sometimes it's like, oh man, these strings is like I don't need the string.
Yeah.
It can drive you crazy. Wow, that's good.
So what I had to decide to do was just not look at a 6th string for about 2 years. I just played only the 7th string. I didn't go back and forth. And that's the only way I could get used to the thinking of it as a complete instrument.
And now you switch from both, or?
Well, not really. I mean, I play 7th string all the time. It's no reason, unless I pick up someone else's guitar. If I don't have mine with me, then I can still play a 6th string without getting lost. But I played a 6th string for the for the Woody Allen movie Sweet and
Yeah.
Lowdown. I did the soundtrack for that. That was on like a specific, like a gypsy style guitar, which I only had a 6-string. So I played on that. I also taught Sean Penn how to play on a 6-string. So that's when I got used to going back and forth between 6 and 7 again.
Yeah, I was. Well, that was I was gonna give you later for the interview, but now you mentioned it. Who was participating like with Woody Allen and Sean Penn? That might be like great, right?
Yeah, it was great and interesting. Woody is I'd played with Woody before. I played banjo
The clarinet,
in
yeah.
his New Orleans band. In fact, he's still in Europe right now touring. But years ago, I played a banjo a couple of times with him, and he he barely spoke to me. He would barely look at me. He's very quiet and focused on just playing. He doesn't talk to the audience. He doesn't talk to the band. He just wants to play his music. So I didn't even know he even knew who I was. And then years later, I got the call to play the music first, the music for the soundtrack, and then the producer asked me if I would consider teaching Sean Penn how to play the guitar. So we arranged we talked about a few things, and I went to another office in Manhattan, and I'm standing there, and Woody comes in, and the producer is talking with him for a minute, and then he says, "Hey, Woody, I want you to meet Howard, who's going to be teaching Sean how to play the guitar." He says, "Oh, I know Howard. Yeah, how you doing?" Like he just saw me the other day, you know. And then he came over and he says, "Yeah, just make sure he looks like he knows what he's doing on a guitar." And I said, "Okay." And he really very little interaction with Woody. He just kind of likes to leave people to do what they're doing. And but then like a couple months later, after we've recorded the music, and then I'm on the set every day teaching Sean how to play the guitar, you know, whenever he has a moment on his lunch break or slowly working on simple things. And I'm standing outside on one of the breaks, and Woody just walks over to me out of the blue, says, "Hey, Howard, you know those really fast runs you play on the guitar? What do you practice to be able to do there? Is there something you practice to be able to do that?" And I said, "Well, it's a lot of things. It's a lot of time playing, and there's scales and arpeggios and pick." He says, "Well, you know, on clarinet, I practice long tones. Is there something like that you practice on guitar?" I said, "Well, there aren't really long tones on the guitar, but yeah, there's things we do to try to, you know, get the sound." And we kind of went back and forth for 5 minutes talking about guitar technique and stuff. And then he just kind of wandered off and didn't talk to me again for 2 months, you know.
Well, he get the information he wanted, and that's it. You know?
Yeah, I said, "Oh, by the way, yeah, well, how do you do those things?" "Okay, thanks, bye."
Actually, I think you did a great job. I mean, I saw the movie when it was released on cinema, and I have the remembrance that Sean Penn really seemed he was playing. So
he did an amazing job. He'd never touched a guitar in his life, not even strumming folk chords or anything. He really wanted to do a good job. So he learned how to play some single note melodies, note for note, just by pounding it out and memorizing some chords. But a lot of times we would record things that he hadn't practiced before because Woody didn't give the information of what tune we were going to do. So he knew how to play a few tunes, but then they'd say, "Okay, at 2 o'clock, we're going to be filming Wrap Your Troubles in Dreams." And it's a tune that he hadn't even touched. So he said, "Well, if you sit over there on the side, I'll watch you and see when you're doing single notes, I'll go like this. And when you're doing chords, I'll go like this." And he was trying to figure out a way to make it look realistic. And then a few of the things he could actually play note for note never made it onto the camera. You know, it was always focused on his face or something else. I'm saying, "Come on, show his fingers. Look, he can really play it." You know? But it was a great, and Sean was very serious. I mean, just very easygoing. He wasn't like a star or a diva. He was just really down to earth. He really wanted to get into it, and worked really hard.
And so, did he kept the interest in playing? Because I mean, there's many Hollywood stars like Johnny Depp that they play. So
he did for a while. Like a couple years later, I was in San Francisco to play a few little gigs, and that's where he lives. He's got an office there. So I called up his office and I talked to his secretary. I says, "Is Sean around? It's Howard Alden, in town." He says, "Oh, he's not in today, but he was yesterday. He was just talking about you. He was sitting here playing his guitar in the office." I said, "He's still playing?" He said he keeps the guitar in the office and he picks it up every once in a while and plays it. So
Oh, that's good.
yeah.
Was that a changing point in your career? I mean, this changed you a lot, your life, or was nothing, not a big deal?
Yes and no. It did in the fact that through the movie and the music in the movie, it reached a lot more people because people were it interested a lot of people in that style of playing. I mean, I still run into people who say, "Oh, I was playing whatever blues, or I was playing folk guitar, or whatever," and I heard that, and I wanted to play that style, Django style, and it helped me discover, and by hearing that music. So a lot of people got turned on to that style of playing through that, and they know my name through that movie. So I mean, I'd played with a lot of well-known jazz musicians before that, and made some records that got out a little bit, but that probably exposed my name to a bigger audience. Mm-hmm. So, and it also kind of helped reconnect me with the gypsy jazz Django style guitar scene, particularly in America, which has come up a lot in the last 20 years. There's huge, every city has their own hot club of, Seattle hot club of Tucson, hot club of, and there's a huge interest in guys playing that style of music. Mm-hmm. And because I did the recording from the movie, a lot of times I get called to do guest spots with people, or they want to hear me play that type of thing. So it's fun.
Yeah, that remind me of, I remember once I read an interview with Keith Richards from Rolling Stones. He was telling that when he got the call to be on Pirates of the Caribbean, their family, their wives, their kids, they were like, "Oh, we want to meet Johnny Depp," and he's like, "Man, I'm Rolling Stone guitarist, and for my family, I'm just like a piece of shit," they just want.
Yeah. Who cares? Not a guitar player.
So probably that happened to you, that everyone wanted to meet Champagne through you, and that happened to you.
Well, yeah. It's funny. I remember a year or two after the movie came out, I was playing a little place in New York with a little jazz trio, and then this waitress in the audience came up to someone else, a friend of mine, and says, "Oh my God, he sounds great. He sounds just like Sean Penn. He plays just like Sean Penn." Oh
my God, that's today these things happen, and with all the social media and the fake news, everything today, everyone believes everything. So.
Exactly. I mean, I even had musicians, jazz musicians who should know better, a year or two after the thing said, "Yeah, I saw that movie. It's pretty interesting. Now, what are there any good Emmett Ray records that I should check out that are representative?" I said, you can buy my records. Woody did it made the movie in such a deadpan, matter-of-fact way that a lot of people still think there's a guitar player named Emmett Ray in history somewhere.
Oh my God.
But it's fun, and it's all good.
Well, I mean, if it's a way that people get to jazz and to listen to jazz guitar, that's always great.
Exactly. Yeah.
And talking about records, the industry has changed so much. I guess that your main point of living is the gigs and being on tour. Are you planning in any new CD?
I don't have any definite plans. I've got to make some plans because it's been a while. I was spoiled years ago when there were when I recorded for a real record company who would promote you and do a series. I recorded for Concord Records for a number of years, and they had a good catalog. I'd do regular recordings for them. They'd get them out there. They'd promote them. Mm-hmm. And now the last couple of things I did were for just independent labels, but it's time to get off my ass and try to plan something, because there's a lot of things I'd like to do that, the last recording that I did was recorded in like 2013. Oh, actually, I did a duo record with a guy in Chicago in 2015. But yeah, it's been 10 years, so time to either figure out what medium to use and what where to send the files, what downloads to record.
And when you have played so many jazz standards, and do you feel more comfortable recording like standards, or you prefer composing your own songs? How is everything?
I've written just a few originals over the years. And it's something if I spent more time trying to do, I probably. But there's so many not just compositions of other people in the history of jazz I like to try to explore and interpret, or I hear something I like and I try to play it. So I guess I'm more comfortable interpreting the other people's work and picking them out. I mean, between jazz and there's a whole world of Brazilian music that I enjoy exploring too. There's so many things to choose from, and so I usually just, if I hear something that attracts me and that speaks to me personally, I try to start playing it and work into my repertoire.
And it's very different to play duo or in a band. I mean, or when you come for someone else. Which is the situation that you feel more comfortable playing, like in a duo setting, in trio, with a band?
Well, I'm very comfortable in a duo setting. I enjoy that because it's more intimate, and it relies less on formula. Bass and drums playing time, playing. And I really enjoy playing solo guitar. I enjoy doing solo concerts where I just explore tunes on my own and can control the texture and the time more myself. So I guess my favorite two are either duo or solo, or maybe solo first and then duo. And then I enjoy playing in a band, usually smaller groups, trio at the most. When it gets more than that, you're trying to direct traffic too much. It cuts out a lot of spontaneity, but it can also be fun too. So,
but I think that playing solo is much more difficult, and also playing duo, and also solo you get much more pressure. So
yes.
Do you need to practice a lot for these concerts? Do you have a very strict practice routine, or?
I don't have a strict practice routine. I've just gotten over the years, somehow I've gotten an attitude where I'm just used to sitting down and pick up the guitar and playing music without worrying about having a special arrangement or a presentation. Usually I find that if I just do what I do naturally and feel comfortable with an audience in front of me, it usually works out the best. I enjoy that the most. It's maybe 30 years ago I'd feel there was a lot of pressure, but now it feels more relaxed to me in a way, because I have more control over what happens, over the pacing and what I'm playing. And I've learned over the years that I don't have to play every single note, even if it's just me too. When I first started, I tried to fit in all the solo notes and all the comping and the bass notes and transitions and stuff. And I've learned how you can express yourself with much less than we usually think we have to play. As guitarists, we always want our hands to be moving. We're used to hanging on that thing and don't let it go because it might get away. So over the years, I've finally learned how to play a couple of notes and leave some breathing room.
Yeah, I think for like horns is easier because they need to breathe, physically. Yes. So they have a very good pacing and phrases, and for us it's very easy nonstop.
Yeah, we just want to keep our hands want to keep going because it feels good, And the more we do, the better we get at it. But we have to just take the guitar off the neck every once in a while. Stop, put it over here.
Preparing the interview, and I watching videos and many pictures of you. I mean, your curriculum is spectacular. You have played with, great, Ray Brown, Peter Sberstein, Jimmy Hall, Jimmy Bruno, Buck Pizzarelli, Les Paul. Uh, from all the ones you play with, which would be the most special, players you play with in your life?
Well, that's a hard question because they're all special for one reason or another. But I would say George Van Epps is a special case. That's separate. That's special, very special, just completely separate. George Van Epps, one of the favorite people I played with was the trumpet player Ruby Braff, who I played with in the late 80s, 90s. We played a lot of just bass, guitar, cornet, trumpet. And when I still hear recordings that we did or played and I have the memory of playing with him, it was very special music, special interpretation, special feeling. So he's way up there. And as far as guitarists, I played a lot with a great guitar player in New York, Jack Wilkins, who just passed away a few months ago. Mm. And he was an amazing person to play with too, because playing with him was really a wonderful exchange of ideas and trust and excitement. Never taking it easy or backing off. It was just always a great meeting of fingers and minds and notes, So Jack Wilkins is way up there.
Well, also, I guess that playing with another guitar player, you get to improve a lot and learn many things because every guitarist has his personality, right?
That's true, yeah. I mean, and again, Jack was completely different than playing with George Van Epps. And I spent many years playing with Bucky Pizzarelli, too, who was very special in a different, more relaxed sort of way. But we had a lot of great moments together with Bucky and myself, too. So... and I should mention another person who I think there's just a couple of videos on YouTube of years ago of myself playing with him, but a great clarinet player named Anat Cohen, who plays clarinet and saxophone. She's had a wonderful career playing with her own groups and writing her own music, but we played duo concerts every once in a while over the years, and they were always very, very special, very exciting meetings, So...
Oh. That's great. Yeah, that's great to hear.
Well, that's another one. I could go on and on, but
no, you play with so many people, and you also play with Randy Brecker and Esperanza Spalding, which are more modern. And
yes,
I wanted to know. I mean, for all I have listened, you see these, you're more of like a kind of traditional jazz, let's say, or classic jazz.
Yeah.
But do you also like to play or listen something like more fusion or rock or funk or?
I do. I like to listen to more some fusion things, and I enjoy playing it. When I get thrown in that situation, it feels good, and I always have a good time. I guess I've just spent so much time doing the other things that I always get called to do that, and it leads to more and more of that. My background never was in rock so much. I started out when I was a kid. I was a jazz nerd. All I wanted to do was jazz, and I appreciate most rock stuff more now than I did when I was a kid. Now I listen to it and say, "Wow, how did I miss that? Hey, that's happening shit. Man, why didn't I learn that when I was 15?" But when I was 15, I was trying to learn how to play like Barney Kessel and Jimmy Rainey and George Van Epps. So
yeah, and what drove you so young to listen to jazz? Because like you say, for like kids, it's more normal, to listen to what's on the radio, what's famous, wherever it's Michael Jackson or wherever. So
it's just weird. I think when I was very young, I came across some old records in the house. Probably when I was 5 or 6 years old, I came across a little 45 RPM records. Some of Benny Goodman, some of like the Count Basie rhythm section, and somehow that sound and that feel always kind of stuck in my mind. And I always and then when I heard someone played me the records of some of the jazz guitar players when I was about 12 or 13 years old, I just got infatuated with that sound. and so pursued that so much that I didn't pay attention to the pop music that was going on around me as much.
Wow, that was so curious. And your parents, they listen a lot jazz. They would relate it to music, or
Well, not so much. They had like some show tune albums around the house. Somehow, some of those records, maybe they belonged to a relative or something. There were some old 78s too that someone had left there, and I found them and played them. Things, some of the old big band stuff like Tommy Dorsey, and but and I remember there was one Les Paul record there from the 50s. Uh, some other strange things like Spike Jones. I don't know if you know who that is. He's a
no,
he was a, he was a very, very strange band leader from the 30s and 40s and 50s that did these really wacky, crazy stuff.
Okay.
Like I said, when when I was 10 years old, I started playing the banjo, and eventually got to know these people in this Southern California banjo band, a bunch of banjo players that get together and play. And there was a guy there playing banjo who was also a guitar player. He was playing four-string guitar tuned like a guitar. I got to know him. He's the guy who played these jazz guitar records for me. I was hanging out at his house, and I was checking out all the records I recognized. Again, Benny Goodman, Louis Armstrong I'd heard of. And he says, "Howard, how come you're not listening to my jazz guitar records?" And I said, "What's jazz guitar?" And he said, "Oh, here, let me show you. Here's a record. See this guy? He's Charlie Christian. He played with Benny Goodman. He was the first electric jazz guitar player, made some records. He died, and we played wow, that's incredible. Now, this is Barney Kessel. He kind of took what Charlie Christian did and did his own thing longer. And this is Jim Hall. He plays very sparsely, a little different style, very subtle. And this is Django Reinhardt. Look, he only has two fingers on his hand. Anyhow, he introduced me to all these great jazz guitar players, and I had my cassette recorder, made tapes of everything, and studied these things. Started learning how to play guitar on my own as much as I could. And a few years later, another banjo player I'd been playing with in the pizza parlors and stuff around Southern California, he'd seen an ad in the Los Angeles Musicians Union newspaper. It said, "Take lessons with Barney Kessel." And he called up on my behalf. He says, "Hey, there's this kid here who loves your playing. He'd love to study with you." And Barney said, "Well, I'm sorry, I'm starting to travel now. I can't take any students, but he should go see my friend Jimmy Weibel." And I said, "Well, if Barney says he's good, he must be good." I drove up to this music store in Glendale, California, and started taking lessons from him. Now, Jimmy Weibel, I don't know if you know that name or not, but he played in the 40s. He used to play with the Bob Wills country western swing band, very famous band in the 40s. In the 50s, he started playing more jazz, and he played with Red Norvo after Tal Farlow left for many years, and was involved in a lot of jazz things. Also did a lot of studio work. Just a great all-around guitar player. And by the 70s, he was teaching and doing some studio work. And anyhow, I studied with Jimmy for a couple of years, and he taught me so many things. There were so many wonderful things, that great habits and stuff. And one day I said, "Hey, I see an ad in this paper. Take this seminar with Howard Roberts for 3 days. Unlock your creative potential on the guitar, learn chords, learn scales, learn everything jazz, He says, "Oh, you should definitely," he said, "you should definitely go to that." And he knew Howard from, years and years. And I went to the Howard seminar, which was an incredible learning experience. He laid out so many useful ideas and was presented so many ideas that were so useful to me. And after knowing him for a year and taking some small group classes, he started the Guitar Institute for the first year in 1977. So I was one of his first students. It was like a class of about 30 people the first year. It was very small. And he was just getting started, but he would bring these incredible players to be guest teachers like Joe Pass. Joe DiOrio was a teacher there, great guitar player from Seattle, Don Mock, who was more of a fusion player.
It had some these videos, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And I met Pat Martino for the first time, came out, did guest spots there. So it was really an incredible thing being immersed in this thing with all these wonderful players coming in. Ron S.J., great guitar player from the West Coast, who later became a great 7-string guitar player. And I liked it at the time because I'd started to go to college, to a regular university, to take a music program, but I was already a working musician, and the people I met through Howard and the players there, it was more real. It was applicable to real music and what I was doing at the time, and it was just and then it grew, it became bigger and bigger, and eventually started becoming bass and percussion, and eventually MI, Musicians Institute. But the very first year, it was still very small and very close contact with everybody, very, very personal, very real. It was very disorganized. A lot of times people were scuffling to get the next day lesson together or figure out what they're going to do. But it was just great being with those people for a year.
Yeah, that must be that had been probably incredible, because we in Spain, I remember when I started playing, like Howard, he had his Guitar Player magazine, lessons, and Don Moog, all these videos, like Guitar Leagues videos they had, and all this
right
stuff. I mean, this arrived to Spain, but there was not much more information on how to play jazz or fusion. So many people learn a lot just with Guitar Player, things and videos. So
yeah. So I mean, what I missed as far as the formal music education, I don't know. To me, it was more useful to me to get the personal thing from real working players, And then I went on and gradually got involved in the music scene around LA, and then met more and more jazz players, and wound up going to the East Coast and getting involved in the jazz scene in New York there. But my education was basically from early days of just learning how to play little gigs first on the banjo, and then working the guitar in, and then studying with these players, that taught me real life information.
And how different was the LA jazz scene compared to the New York?
Well, New York is much closer together, much denser. I mean, there were great players in LA. A lot of them had moved out there for the studio work years ago. But there was the distances. You'd go to one club and you have to drive 30 miles or 50 miles to get to another place. In New York, it was just more of a tradition of live music and people going out and supporting live music. There seemed to be just more things in a small amount of area, small space. And when I moved to New York, not only were some younger players getting known there to become jazz players, but also a lot of the old masters that were just names on records to me were still just there playing gigs, whether you'd meet this bass player that recorded with Charlie Parker, and he's playing a little gig in a joint in the Village, So it was a more close-knit thing, and I found it to be very supportive. No, not defensive. People were very welcoming. I mean, I was new in town from California. I'd played a couple of gigs with a couple of well-known people, but people invited me out to different places. Yeah, come on down. There's this one guy, Wayne Wright, a guitar player who I met, he says, I'll take you out to Les Paul's house. We'll go out and hang out with Les Paul. It was like very friendly. now, as the years went by, the gigs got less and less, and I think people got a little more defensive. Like, if people, instead of playing for 1 or 2 weeks in a club every once in a while, they'd play one night every few months, if they're lucky to get a gig there to perform. But it's still the fact that maybe because of the nature of the place too, people live in tiny apartments, so they have to go out and get somewhere at night. They have to go out to a restaurant just to get some space. So there's more nightlife.
And there's also a lot of competition, like in the jam sessions. And
Yes,
what about
yes.
that? Yeah.
People set a very high standard, so you're expected to live up to a certain
Mhm.
level.
Yeah, yeah. That's the feeling I have, that because I'm more in the rock pop part of the music, but I used to play jazz when I started a little bit, and I always felt that in the jazz environment there was a lot of competition, that if you can play this song, Giant Steps, Donna Lee, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like in rock, it's not necessary to play fast, it's
Yes. No, no, it's a different vibe. It's a different structure, your feeling. Yeah, there's,
and also about the banjo. I know some people play banjo and they tune it like a guitar, and they play just like guitar and banjo. You
yes.
play like this, or you just play in different tunings? Because I think the banjo has
It's a different tuning. The banjo I played that I started playing is called the tenor banjo. It was big in the 20s. It's tuned in fifths like a viola,
a violin, yeah.
ADGC, or like a violin. So it's a completely different set of fingers. It's so different from the guitar that I can go back and forth, because it makes me think of different things, or puts my fingers in a different place and gives different sounds are right under my fingers. So I enjoy playing. I still play the banjo quite frequently when I can, both in trad bands, or sometimes I just go out and play regular, jazz tunes on it. I try to play some Brazilian music on it, because it's a different voice and it's a different sound. So it leads you to unexpected places, instead of things that fall right under your fingers on the guitar. They fall in a different place.
Okay. And you like playing country music with banjo too, or?
No, not so much country music. Maybe Western swing, maybe older style country music. I'm not up to date on what the up to date country music is,
Okay.
and I never really played. A lot of people think of the 5-string banjos like bluegrass too. I
Okay.
never played bluegrass.
Okay. So it's a different concept, yeah.
Different style of music.
And
So
I heard in an interview, in a video I saw about you, that you have one guitar made here in Spain, like Guzman or something like that, or I'm just.
no, unfortunately,
No?
no. I haven't made a guitar in Spain. No, there was.
Okay.
I had one of my. I have a nylon string guitar, 7-string, that was made by a friend of mine in England.
Okay.
But the jazz guitar players, the steel strings, are made by Benedetto, who's a American
Okay.
Italian American maker.
Okay, no, then I don't know what I heard,
Yeah,
My English is good, but not that good.
no Spanish guitarists.
And talking about your influences, which have been your main guitaristic influences in your career? Like your idols?
Yeah, well, I'd have to, when I began, of course, Barney Kessel. He reached me somehow. Just his combination of single notes and chords and the sound and the swing, just it struck me and I still go back and listen to those records, and it's very special to me. Everything about his playing just resonates with me. Maybe it's because we have the same birthday too. We were born on the same day, October 17th. Him a few years earlier than I was, but and George Van Epps, I admire his sense of harmony. But everybody has something different to offer. I mean, I used to go hear John Scofield whenever I could in New York City to play him with his quartet, because I loved the way he played, and he had a particularly good quartet at that time with just sax and guitar and bass and drums. And there's an incredible younger Brazilian 7-string guitar player named Yamandu Costa in Brazil, who's just an amazing player on the 7-string guitar in Brazil. I admire his playing ever since I first heard him 15 years ago or so. Great player.
Oh, nice. And when I would like to know, if you listen a lot to your own records, and do you study your style and say, oh, I have to get better at this and this, or I like this, I don't like this. I mean, or you just don't care about your own records?
Yes, I do. I always hear something that I should improve and try to play it better. And like one of the things I said earlier is trying to realize that I don't have to play every note all the time, and learn how to breathe and learn how to. You'd always try to phrase a melody more meaningfully and try to get a better sound and define a harmony clearly. When I hear some records, then I say, well, I was doing that pretty good after all. So it's sometimes you can make a recording and listen to it 6 months later and say, oh God, that was horrible. I should have done this better. And I should have done this. And next time I'll do it better. And then you let 20 years go by and listen to it. Yeah, that was pretty good after all, So your perception is always changing.
Mhm.
It's always a growth process,
And after so many years playing in your career, and I mean, you play great. And when you take some time to study or practice, do you still transcribe other guitarists' ideas, or you just work more on yourself? Like, oh, I'm gonna try, do that chord solo. And how do you work?
I do both. I hear bits and pieces by other guitarists, and I listen to them. And yeah, sometimes I do actually transcribe them, write them out, just so I can see what they are. And maybe I can share them with another guitar player sometime too. I do like to transcribe other people's ideas on guitar or other instruments. And again, sometimes I will just sit and just play around by myself and try to transpose different ideas and put things together by myself. And other times, sometimes I'll try to interpret a song differently, or sometimes my wife will say, "Hey, I heard this thing. I think it's Chopin in this movie, and what was it called? The Opus whatever 17." And I'll look it up and try to learn that and adapt that to the guitar and try to learn something for it. There's never a dull moment. There's always something to do.
and,
and
and how's life on the road compared to being home? How do you like it? Being in the road, or you're already tired?
Well, I like being in the. People say a lot of times. People say, "What's your favorite place to play?" or "What's your favorite country to go to?" or "What's your favorite theater?" And my answer is usually wherever I'm being hired to play music. That's my favorite place, wherever I'm playing at the moment. I don't have a favorite. I enjoy, and I don't mind the travel. I'll put up with the airplanes as long as I know there's good music at the end of the trip. So it's, it's this upcoming trip in October is going to be busy. It's going to be one-nighters, for almost 3 weeks. It's going to be a little bit of running around, but you just, I don't know. I like to play. and
about your gear, apart from your guitar, you use any effects, any special kind of amps, or you just whatever they put you on amp, you just plug in?
I being on the road, I have to settle with whatever is provided for me. And sometimes when I'm able to travel with something, I take something in my suitcase if I'm able to, but it's really logistics of travel keep it down to I try to just have the guitar. I haven't really, every time I try to mess around with effects, I get there and I have a problem with the cord or something shorts out or a battery goes out. So I try to keep it minimal. I try to keep it as simple as possible.
But if you have to record an album and you can get anything you wish, like gear wise, what is what you use? I mean, in terms of effects, amps, what is your favorite sound?
I've always always preferred tube, valve amplifiers. I mean, for years back in the early '80s, I used to lug around a Mesa Boogie around New York City until my arm finally got tired. And if I find a studio that has a good sounding, and it might be a Fender Deluxe in good shape, it might be something else. I just try to get it to work for me and get a sound out of it. Other than that, I've used on the road a lot. I've used these amplifiers made in Germany that a lot of the gypsy players use. What the hell are they called? And oh, just recently, I started using a guy in Colorado who's making amplifiers, Hendrickson. They're very high quality, and they're sounding really good now. But they're solid state amplifiers, but they have a very even, clear sound that seems to work with what I do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's always something to find to improve the sound, and I don't have one definite answer.
Okay, no, I'm just wondering, and
Yeah.
wondering if you like a special reverb or use a little bit of distortion or compression or something like that, just to
No, I don't really use compression, distortion. I just try to get the sound out of the
clean.
guitar and use a pretty flat, direct.
Okay, that's nice. Okay, so what else? So many questions already. Oh yeah, I want to ask you about in jazz. For I always felt that most jazz musicians they memorize a lot of standards, and was wondering with years passing by, you try to play everything by memory, or sometimes you just like put the lead sheet and it's like
I like to play everything by memory. I really do. I've played with a lot of people over the years who all had slightly different repertoires, so it forced me to learn a lot of different tunes. But I tried to stay away from the music as fast as possible because even if you make a mistake in a harmony every once in a while, it makes you more tuned into the music. It makes you hear things faster and better. I know it's a great tool, but I hate it when people come on the gigs and look at their phone for the changes, or bring their iPad.
and how is your way to memorize? Do you have any particular trick?
Well, I try to internalize the harmony, the harmonic progression, how many bars, the form. I try to memorize the melody and get to know it so I can hear it in my head and play it without thinking about it so much. And I just by repetition. I mean, maybe it's just a matter of pride, but I've made it a point of trying to memorize things before I go on the stand and not have music, especially for they're only 16 or 32 bar tunes. They're not like a whole symphony. It's to me that's the only way you can play, and then you can improvise convincingly on something that you know well enough that you can make variations and play it with some feeling. I know there's people that are great sight readers, can look at a piece of music and play it and make it sound fresh, but I really prefer internalizing everything because that proves that you care enough about the tune that you want to learn it. If it doesn't mean that much to you, if it's just like reading a book or reading a newspaper, then that's fine too. But it doesn't mean as much to me.
And I wanted to. I don't know if this question is going to make any sense, but I always feel that improvising a melody solo, like a line,
yeah,
it's kind of more easy than playing a chorus solo in the sense that you always can sing like a melody,
yeah,
but singing chorus is not possible. I mean,
that's true.
But you're great when I saw your videos playing, and you're great playing chorus solos and stuff. And I was like, how do you get to be that good and so easygoing playing chorus solos, whether it's so much more difficult for me than to play a line?
Well, it's a gradual process. You get used to playing like a short melody with chords. You get used to keeping chords beneath the melody note. And at first there's like just certain like formulas, like the little 3-note chords that then you might try to find a more open voicing, but it's just a matter of building up vocabulary in enough phrases that you can connect them and eventually be able to play a melody and find a chord to support it fast enough.
But do you find yourself sometimes like that you play some chord and say, "Oh, why the hell did I play that?" Or
yes,
yeah.
yes, occasionally.
Okay.
Sometimes no. And
No,
and
because
so
when someone sees a guitarist like you, that you think that everything is perfect. So, but
no, sometimes it's like sometimes it lies right on your finger and flows at you. Other times you might do something out of desperation that I have to do something here, and something I know. And again, it's just a gradual learning process. You build upon more and more blocks of things, and then all of a sudden, maybe a couple of years later, you found yourself doing things that you never thought you could do a couple of years before. But
Mhm.
uh,
Okay. That's good. And is there any musician or artist that you would love to play in the future that say, "Oh, I would love to do something with that guy or whoever"?
oh gosh, hmm. Oh, there's yeah, I can't think of any specific ones. I mean, right now there's always someone. Um, gosh,
No, it's okay. But it was just for if you know you had something in mind.
I don't have any specific things in mind right now.
Okay. And in like more personal level, what do you do when you are not with music? Like when you're not playing, studying, touring, what other things you like?
Well, right, we're in Arizona here. My wife and I do like to go out when the weather is a little cooler. We go out. We like to go to places and hike and see things. There's so many wonderful things to see in this area. The Grand Canyon is a marvel. I've loved to go up there and do a little hiking in there and see things. We like to go to some of the local things. There's a arboretum and these botanical gardens. We like to go look at flowers and cactuses and nature and stuff like that. So that's the
That,
kind of thing I like to do. Nature stuff.
that's nice. And after
Yeah.
so many years, what do you think is the jazz scene today? You think it's in good shape or?
It's always changing. It's amazing that there's so many great players, so many young players coming along that are playing so well, despite the fact that I don't think there's the same ground for them to grow on. Like there's not the informal club scene. It's all more. It's not like New York used to be, where a lot of little places where people just get to know their craft and playing without any pressure. Uh, but somehow people are learning how to play and playing great. And and there does seem to be an audience for it. I mean, when people play somewhere, people respond to it if it's good. It's not like young people that you wouldn't think are a jazz audience. So I think it's pretty good. I don't
Mhm.
know.
And do you need to stay very active with social media to for the looking for gigs or whatever, or you just
Yeah, and I've met people over the years. Meet people in person, or somehow they do peer. I guess people do find you on social media now, and they say, "Oh, I saw
Mhm.
you play on so and so." Yeah, it's always evolving.
Mhm.
It's years ago. You went to New York. You wanted hung out at places, made sure your face was around, met people,
Mhm.
played every once in a while. Now there's not the same places to hang out, but I guess people do meet through social media. And well, that's how I met the clarinet player Simon, who I'm playing with. I
Yeah.
met him. I met him on the internet. I
That's
didn't. I
nice.
didn't meet him in a club. I heard him and said, "Hey, that's nice. I like him. Here's a beautiful version." So there.
Yeah, that opened. Yeah, and I met him too, through Facebook. So,
So yeah, it's a different world.
and you do any teaching? Do you teach?
I have a couple of private students now and then who get in touch with me, and sometimes when someone's coming through town that knows who I am, they'll call and see if they can get a lesson or hang out. Or when I'm on the road, I might give lessons now and then, or a workshop at a college or a school or something. So a
Mhm.
little bit of teaching,
Oh, that's nice.
not.
Well, that's been great. I don't want to take you more time because we have you.
Oh, it's a pleasure talking to you. So where are you? What city are you near?
I live in Madrid. I'm
Oh,
from
you're in
Barcelona.
Madrid.
I am from Barcelona, but I've been living for like 21 years in Madrid. Yeah.
Well, I was in Madrid for one night last summer
Mhm.
playing with a saxophone player, Enrique Pedro, who's from Valencia, but he had a little tour with a group. We
Okay.
played it.
What was his name again? What was his name?
Enrique Pedro.
Oh, I don't think I know him. But
Pedro.
In Valencia, there's very good saxophone players and horn players.
Yeah, he's near Denia.
Near
Uh,
there.
yeah, but he brought me over for a tour in March, and then I went back in
Hmm.
July and played a few dates with him. But
Yeah, in
did,
Valencia, they have a lot of tradition of marching bands, not playing jazz, but playing like typicals. So there's a lot of very good saxophone
yeah,
trumpet players in Valencia. Yeah, it's because when they are kids, they always give them a horn play and a horn
get out
instrument,
there. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and they go to the street. Yeah.
Well,
But
maybe I'll see.
I wish you come to Spain to play so I can meet you
I
and
would. I hope. I would like to. Either I'll come back. Maybe Enrico will have me come by again, or maybe I'll come over and see you sometime.
yeah, that would be great. Do you
Yeah.
do you do, do you record music in do you have your own studio or home or you no?
No, I don't have a studio at home. Um,
Okay. Okay. So well,
okay.
it's been great talking to you. I really love your playing. It's been for me a discovery listening to many of your CDs, and
Thank
so
you.
you do great music, play great. So congratulations for everything, and wish you all the best.
Okay. Well, we'll talk again sometime.
Yeah, whenever you want, it's gonna be a pleasure.
Take
Take
care.
care and thanks so much.
Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.